All right, Salaki, about that. My camera shut off, but go back and watch the first video I did. All right, it's very short, but I was reading 2nd Esdras chapter 6, verse 22, because a worldwide orchestrated famine is approaching. Okay, I'm gonna go back to that Dabu 77 video, but fertilizer is not being exported. All right, just to sum it all up in case you didn't watch my last video. So this is 2nd Esdras chapter 6, verse 22. And suddenly shall the sown places appear unsown. The full storehouses shall suddenly be found empty. Right, your full storehouses are like your grocery stores and outlets. All right, that's going to be found empty. It's going to be a shortage of food out here. Okay, and then without the gas, no vehicles can transport these items, these commodities. All right, so everything is being orchestrated for just a worldwide collapse. All right, and all out chaos. Okay, so let's go back to that Dabu. I'll start from the beginning.
We have some fresh warnings here about the food supply, and that there is indeed going to be a supply shock. The people being told about this, but whether they're preparing for this or not is another story. We have multiple things lining up here that are going to affect the harvest this year and just the food, period. As the LNG chief here, Pablo Escobar, what a name, right? He warns that this cutback in fertilizer en masse and this Gulf energy shock is going to develop into a food crisis that we've never seen, saying that we are on borrowed time, that every day that this trade remains closed and everyday production does not come back, we're building a problem for the future. He says that we're transferring from the energy side into many different sectors, with the food sector being one of the most important ones. He continued by saying that this is not sustainable, that this energy crisis will become a food crisis very soon. He also added that
this energy crisis will become a food crisis. This is the LNG chief, all right, Pablo Escobar. But yeah, you need, again, the oil. That will affect transportation, vehicles, all right, planes, all transportation, right? Which that will result in commodities of different sorts not being distributed to these different infrastructures, right? These different factories and warehouses, okay? And stores and outlets. Okay, then without LNG, which is ultimately the energy, no, air conditioner, power plants, heat in your home, right? The stove. Okay, ultimately, like the power grid system off. All right, so let's continue.
Even if Hormuz was open today, it would still take 3 to 5 months to get everything back to fully recover. That's where we sit right now with no end in sight. And I want to remind you, it is Trump that has the whole thing closed at this point. And when you add on top of this, the drought that is just all across the United States. You can see on the image in the middle here, severe drought is causing major issues. And then you add that the fertilizer is not coming, that 70% of the farmers are not getting the fertilizer they need for this season. This is a catastrophe. Seeing all this happening, you've got to chalk up some kind of plan to stock up on food or have some kind of plan going into the winter ahead. Some are going to say, oh, wait for that later. Well, you better realize what's happening right now before you end up at a store and there's nothing to get, nothing to buy. The water depleted all across the board, and this is all by design. This is a continuation of weather warfare, but one that doesn't get called out.
Exactly, yeah, weather warfare, And these droughts, I can see this like being part of the weather machine, all right, the weather manipulating machine, okay? Because in Iran, now they're experiencing a lot of like rainfall, a lot of water, and it's like the most they had in like decades because they, right after they destroyed American radar system. So there's no coincidence with that, all right? Right after they destroyed American radar system in that area, now all of a sudden they're getting like a lot of amount of rainfall, water.
As much because it's not storms, it's not flooding, it's nothing that you can really see. The drought creeps up on everyone. And here we're already at a point where it's having devastating impacts. We had hardly no snow in the mountains. You've got droughts all across the board, the Midwest and the plains here. You've got a lack of fertilizer, and you've got a war that's cutting off all the supplies, all in all, that continues. So the warnings are out there. This global supply crunch is going to continue, if you ask me, and I would chalk up a plan. I'd start growing food. It is spring, but again, you're going to face the same thing as some of the farmers out there with the lack of fertilizer. But some of you should have better odds at growing your local home little stash or supply than a huge farm that's trying to grow fields. So I would do something to mitigate the damage because prices are not coming down anytime soon, and it looks like the war continues on. Join me for the live streams Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, 8 p.m. Eastern, where I talk about this in greater detail. Much love.
Yeah, and then also a 7.5 magnitude earthquake hit the coastline of Japan. So real quick, this is the second as just the 9th chapter. Earthquakes and uproars of the people. All right, and of course there's been uproars happening. Still happening today in some parts of the world. Like look at France. Some parts. All right, in Paris. But yeah, this is a huge earthquake. Okay, 7.5 is wild. So if I can play it, hold on.
Hit the northern shores of Japan. This has triggered a tsunami warning.
So when you put it right, earthquakes in diverse places, Bible verse, right? Matthew 24 chapter. Okay, these will increase. Yeah, and these can be orchestrated. Ultimately, all being done by the Heavenly Father. Okay, but He gave Esau this weapon to use. All right, these weather manipulating machines and whatnot, and also because the devil's taking oil out the earth. So the earth is kind of like fighting back because Esau is a sickness. He's he's like that foreign object in your body, that foreign what's the word, bacteria, okay, that your white blood cells fight. Whenever you're sick, that's because you have something foreign invading your body, and your white blood cells got to fight it off. All right. So Esau is like the cancer of the earth. He's that tumor, okay? And then the earth is fighting back.
Especially for the Kuji port in the Await prefecture. Now, there's broadcasts put out initially saying that this tsunami could be up to 10 feet high in this specific area. This is on Honshu's main island. So they're waiting to see as time goes by just how bad this is going to be. It's kind of a wait and see type of thing. Although the alerts and the warnings have been put out, they say the quake had rattled towers as far away as Tokyo. This has also forced the suspension of the high-speed rail service in this region, and the government is mobilizing emergency services and urging citizens to flee the affected areas, to evacuate now. So that is the word. Get out now. Regardless if this tsunami ends up being massive or small, you don't want to risk the chance. Anyone out there, a shout out to Silver Sailor, everyone else out there in Japan. Hopefully there's not a lot of damage done with this. It doesn't look like buildings like collapsed and came down en masse. The biggest thing I think here is waiting to see what kind of damage the tsunami does. Hopefully it's not a lot, but you just never know. 2011 Fukushima, when the 9.0 hit there, it was the tsunami that did most of the destruction. So, no word if this affected anything else yet, but I will update as I get this info. Make sure to follow me over on X for updated information, and I'll leave links below. This has been pt2. Much love.
Off the coast of northern Japan, off the east coast of northern Japan, It's an earthquake, we're told, about 10 kilometers deep, and the Japanese Meteorological Agency have put quite large swathes of Japan's northern coast on a tsunami warning and essentially ordered people to evacuate as quickly as they can.
Yeah, so that's it, man. You know, orchestrated famine, earthquakes are, you know, increasing, you know, because they've been happening a lot. Okay, not every day, but when they do happen, it's huge. Okay, they're happening more frequently. Okay, and someone even put something down here. Yeah, they said the dragon of Dalzell. It says 2026 has been a loose cannon so far, and is probably still cracking its knuckles. Yeah, because ultimately the Most High Yahweh, there was only begotten Son Yahweh Shai is doing this. Okay, you know, prophecy. All right, all this has to happen. You know, we're seeing the downfall of this man Esau Edom, his world. Okay, so it's gonna go out in a violent, crazy way. But after that, it's gonna be beautiful because Yahweh Shai is gonna set up his kingdom, a righteous kingdom. Ain't gonna be none of this. The earth is gonna be beautified, man. Ain't gonna be none of this, you know, what's going on today, this BS. We live in a dark, clouded, dystopian type of world now. Okay? So hopefully, you know, this was edifying. On to the next one. Shalom.